Okay, I feel like I personally want to watch the rest of this, but I also think my answer is some old videos of mine. So let's see if I can let this play. And but I don't want to just let it play. I want to still answer it. So but let's see if I can play this and leave any time for those other videos, or maybe I'll do them some other time soon.
Why do I report it? Is it a feature of architecture of and known physics? Or is there good reason? That's the big question. Is there good reason to hypothesize a new thing yet? Because, it's entirely possible. Well, but it seems unlikely, or at least unneeded to hypothesize. The possibility of it, well, we can't speak to the possibilities. Um, but you have to find a phenomena that is clearly outside of the current rules of physics, and that includes quantum mechanics. I'm fine with quantum mechanics as a rule of physics in terms of its limitations. Um, the the architecture can involve um, statistical. The reason may be emergent from statistical phenomena, but that it's
Okay,
statistical is
that
still, to my mind, needing it has a reason in reality, and
I think it has a reason in reality.
firmly.
Wait, I think it has a reason in reality, but we have to be open-minded as to that reason might be something that we haven't considered yet, and probably is, or else we'd have a much clearer idea of it all. Um, but I wanted to say, yes, this is something we don't agree on, but you seem to get, which is, I think, the room for will, even if it's just a compatibilist fake will, is fundamentally linked to randomness or pseudo randomness, like cellular automaton, hidden rules.
Determined in the way I say it because everything needs a reason, and that sounded rather religious. There is one infinity we have to accept, and that there is existence, or at least capability for existence.
By the way, I mean, were you answering this when you said about the two-dimensional object is really us imagining a two-dimensional object in three-dimensional space? I think it might be possible to imagine a two-dimensional object because just there's various ways to look at that. Generally, we're doing what you say. Was that your answer to my thing about the problem with finity, with a finiteness, is that it's just as hard to think about there being nothing outside a finite object and that being everything as it is to think of infinity itself, with finite objects being subsets, finite subsets.
That just runs forever, and that might be akin to the infinity of space. But there's the whole infinite but bounded question, and that is an imagination conception.
Yeah, there is that.
That we
Infinite
share a
but
difficulty
bounded.
with. As you alluded to, the idea that we're bounded, but there's no outside. It's infinite, bounded, and it makes no sense to talk about outside. And that's because of our image architecture, wherein all objects are.
You got it perfectly, and I would just say also that it's questionable this thing. It's almost like maybe it's just a really good excuse. It's infinite, bounded, and therefore there's no other outside. Why? Because it's got infinite inside. It doesn't need the outside. Yet still, I'm kind of the thing of okay, so it's this bounded bubble, the universe. There's probably other bubbles outside it, right? Don't you think? I don't trust that intuition, but I'm just admitting that that's the intuition.
Are embedded in 3D space. Susskind says, imagine a 2D piece of paper. Who can do it? And all hands go up, and he says, no, what you're imagining is a 2D piece of paper embedded in a 3D framework. Yeah? If you imagine a tabletop as a flat surface, 2D flat surface, the tabletop is embedded in your mind as you picture it in a 3D environment. You can't escape that. And therefore, everything you conceptualize, you put in the 3D framework, and seem to have the sensical question of, well, what's outside it?
Okay, so I'm accepting that. I don't want you to think I'm dismissing that, but this is an opportunity to point out
So
that
the question
isn't there.
is why did things
No,
come?
stop. Isn't there, maybe there's a way to think of 2D. For example, I can do this thing I call, what do I call it? Flat focus, where you can kind of zone out and everything seems really flat. And if you're in a dark space, the dark space seems flat. It's your field of vision, not analyzed into 3D, but just kept as the patches of 2D color that you get from your retina. You get 2D pictures from your retina, and if you just look at that and resist and subtract the 3D processing, it seems like you end up with something 2D. Just an idea.
Why would he report that he felt like he could do this? That he could, for no particular reason, do what he did. And I just see no mystery there, no potential mystery. If we can agree that it's a question of science, then you likewise agree that there's no real mystery in a philosophic sense. And that's been part of the conflict resolution which you've moved a long way to sorting out, I think. That we both agree there's no philosophic problem. There's just two hypotheses on the plate. Now, around the discussion, you invoke quantum mechanics. So there's a philosophic question about whether you can conceive of probability from nothing, from a law of nature. What does it mean? Literally asking the question, what does it mean to be a law of nature then? In that paradigm. There are no mathematical laws of nature. Mathematical laws of nature are merely useful tools for us that we've found give us good answers, and sometimes good pictures, and sometimes no pictures, i.e. quantum mechanics. But again, I stress the fact that there be a reason. That cars actually pass me cannot be questioned. Yeah, you're saying there's only the counter, there's only the moment of finding out, and yeah, it makes no sense to ask me whether a car exists or whether a car is coming in the next moment, because I only tell what happened in the whole hour.
Okay, strictly speaking, the cars are having these interactions. Photons are bouncing off things that are bouncing off. A photon that is bouncing into diffused light is making it to hitting your skin. So quantum mechanically, yeah, there's a particular number of cars coming. It's that at the quantum level where it seems like the events are only there because they happened right then. They're not just around the corner. When the energy's still in the atom, it's not predetermined right around the corner when it's going to come off. It looks like a multidimensional thing, like it's coming off at all of the moments, but we only see one.
But it makes no sense to say there's no cars. That there's only the statistical picture.
It's difficult to make sense of, but there's a lot of reason to look at it that way. And the reason it doesn't make sense could be because our brain can't make sense of it, not because there's a problem with it.
Because for me to work, there has to be cars and the concept of that reality. And that is the way it is with every statistical thing in the universe that we've considered a thought, perhaps with the exception of quantum mechanics. And because it's an exception, it's a justification to say, well, yeah, it's just a statistical tool and it gives statistical answers. You don't throw away, the baby with the bathwater. There's no good reason to say, that's what it means to be magic, is to be without reason. Yeah. How did I do the trick? Yeah, it's magic. There was no mechanism, no sleight of hand. It really did disappear because it's a law of nature that it can. Yeah. So that is the only outstanding magical element to your philosophy that I still challenge, and that is this notion of probability from nothing. And I'll say, if it
I don't think I'll convince you that it's not from nothing. Um, but I think that's because of your idea of consequence. I think that I can imagine that the consequence of rolling dice with your hands is that they could come up any of 36 combinations. And it's not true that the physics that's pushing your hand in the first place does so in a reliable enough way that if you could only have seen the inputs, you would get the output that it turns up 5.
seems like a pejorative, a slur, slight, it's not meant to be. It's meant to portray the ideas that I've discussed about why it constitutes magic, because it seems to be a hypothesis of no reason.
I acknowledge that it seems that way, right? I acknowledge that it seems that way. I understand. See, to me, the reason Gary gets so confused about my positions is because to me, it's like, well, it's 70-30. It's 20% this, I think 30% strength at this idea, and 50 this other idea. I do get determinism. I've tried to follow determinism through. The problem is I find that it does what you said before, which is it destroys even the idea that there is a first person perspective, illusion or not. So I know that exists. That's where Gary and I should be on the same page. But Gary's too big of a jerk to see these kind of partial alliances. And obviously it's happening. You say it's happening too. But you seem to not be acknowledging that that means it's a real phenomena that the universe is doing. That we already know enough to say the universe can feel things because we feel things. And if you say, oh, but a feeling is an illusion, all you're saying is that the idea that a feeling is XYZ is wrong. It's really ABC. You can't say the feelings don't exist. You can just say, oh, it's really this other phenomenon. But it's already amazing that the universe can feel things. And since we know that, we've jumped over the worry that it might be magic. It isn't magic. It can't be magic. It's what's really going on. The universe can generate this first person point of view, this ego, this homunculus that you say is entirely imaginary, and I could accept as imaginary. It's still existing, like the unicorn. It might be a hallucination, but that there is something to have the hallucination is the amazing part, and that's already demonstrated.
This rhetoric you have about everything being real, I'll deal with the unicorn example. In your paradigm, I understand.
I keep saying things because I'm pre-remembering you brought them up because I'd seen this video before, but it was fragmented.
That it's in the sense of your paradigm, unicorns are real. But in the everyday sense, they're not real, right? And even in the...
Well, okay, I don't care about just this is philosophy. Most sense of words... Most sense of words are not the everyday sense when it's in philosophy, first of all. So don't care about that. The everyday sense of real doesn't matter. We're talking about, we're inventing, or should be, or I am trying to invent technical meaning for the word real. Now, that it's material, that it's physical and fits this material model of substances, I also apply that to will, and as you are going to acknowledge, the fact that we have a mental picture of it, that's some sort of physical process, and that's physical, it's real. We also have paintings and pictures, Photoshop pictures of unicorns. That goes in the extension that the word unicorn covers. Images of unicorns. When you say it's not real, you could translate that into technical language as saying that there's only images. There is no biological creature, the unicorn.
And then the concrete meaning. I mean, even the technical understanding of what it means to exist. Yeah, if we grant that there is an outside world, material existence I'm talking about, to material exist is to have a mapping between the structure of the idea of its existence in your mind and it be outside. That's what it means to materially exist. That there's a correlation between a thing outside, and outside is an existent concept, we've stepped outside of solipsism, and the structure in your mind. Now then, your paradigm is it exists because there's the structure in the mind. Well, that isn't what we mean. You've changed the meaning. It might be useful and insightful. It certainly is to point that out in a solipsistic debate and this, that, and the other. But that isn't what material existence means. So to say material exists, the idea of material existence itself is that it is on the outside as well. So I object to that modality.
Well, I don't see the purpose of objecting to it.
Outside of solipsism.
I don't see the purpose of objecting to it. You need to understand my use of the word, and it's different from your use of the word. I'm fixing this stupid description here, which hadn't worked, so one of them has the wrong title at the moment. I reject that we really know if things are external. We could be in a matrix. I say it only matters if the thing is external at a higher level of questioning, because the first level of questioning is about celestial mechanics is what will I see if I look in the sky at a certain location at a certain time. That's the whole of the story. What will I see if I look at a certain time? If it doesn't matter if I'm in a matrix. If I'm in a matrix and I'm still right and I can predict what I'll see, then celestial mechanics is a good science. I'll do the other video afterwards, I guess.
And the structure in your mind.
And now
your paradigm is it exists because there's the structure in the mind. Well, that isn't what we mean. You've changed the meaning. It might be useful and insightful. It certainly is.
Okay, the reason I don't respect that meaning is a lot of people have tried to say, a lot of people have tried to say,
material existence means. So,
a lot of people have tried to say that ideas are just forms and they're metaphysical and we can never explain it. It's not material. So pointing this out, and I left a lot of these ideas in comments to you, but pointing this out is it's a reaction and to be contrary to these people that say that the world of ideas is somehow metaphysical. To point out that there is a material aspect, there is an extension to these things we know as imaginary. It's not that it's in the external world, it's that it's part of this, consistent world, shared and consistent.
To say material exists, the idea of material existence itself is that it is on the outside as well. So I object to that modality.
Not everybody believes that. For fuck's sake. Not everybody believes that, right? Many people believe way more dreamlike versions of reality than mine. So all I can tell you is that my definition of materialism, which I've explained in the past, it has to do with material implication, material facts. A material fact being a fact that you can draw a conclusion from, make a logical inference from data to data, input data to output data. The tool that lets you make that inference to move the one data and say that means this other data is true, that logical inference, that's a material implication, that's the root of my idea of materialism. And I know that's not entirely conventional, but that's because I have a philosophy of image processing. We're doing data processing. So the implications of implying one truth based on a set of these means another set of them would also be true. That process is primary. So I think that's more primary than this idea of substances, which has all these more open questions.
as within a
I'm not
strict
saying there
sense.
isn't substances. I think there is, but there's open questions about whether the substances are energy-like, particle-like, wave-like, and when they are those things.
That's, in mathematical speak, it exists abstractly in our mind, and when I picture one, I instantiate the idea of instantiate the abstract existence of the idea of a unicorn into an actual instance of one in my mind, but it still exists abstractly because I can abstract the idea and I can abstract an instance also of the idea, and I can abstractly conceive of multiple instances of an abstract idea or object, mathematical object or mythical object or real object. All these things can be abstracted, which is to mean form a brain structure that will correlate. Sometimes, as in the
Yeah,
case of unicorn, whether it materially
exactly.
exists is to say it has no material correlate.
Well, this is a big part of why. Okay, this is a big part of what I'm saying. Oh, it's all fucked up. There we go. Let me
Call it a day.
rewind a little bit.
Material correlate.
Right. All ideas have a material correlate. And what I would like to point out is that's what you're actually interacting with. Your idea of a lion is what you're actually interacting with. Even if you're right there physically present with the lion and you're getting senses, all you're doing is reading in the information and your brain creates a holodeck for you. So the primary materiality for your experiences is that part that's in the brain. The part of the chemistry in the brain that's responsible for you thinking there's a lion there, that's in your brain. Even if there is a lion there. If there isn't a lion there, we know it's in your brain. It's just in your brain, like a unicorn. But even when the lion is there, it's in your brain. It's not just in your brain, you're getting information about it. But what you're experiencing is your reproduction of it in a brain, which is why if you're in a coma, you won't even know there's a lion there. But it will be if you're schizophrenic or having dementia, severe dementia. You might see it and think it's something else, or it might be something else and you're seeing it as a lion, in which case there's a horse and it's a real horse, but you're experiencing a lion. The real materiality for human beings is whatever gets reproduced in the brain. Right? So that's again how I'm saying this thing is primary. Yeah, this is just a model for how much your memories, for however your memories work and however good they work. And that's why I did it all impressionistic, because I'm not saying it's a photograph of the real world, but even a photograph of the real world is certain wavelengths and not others. So it has the same problem. It's impressionistic.
Call that a day. It's rather a rambly video, difficult to summarise
No,
and decide on
well,
if there's a reply, whether you're going to answer questions or where we're at with that. But I'm really happy for you to say it's a scientific question. And when I'm saying it kills it, I mean it's killing the philosophic problem. all these, you watch Closer to Truth, and people talk about the hard problem. They talk about it as a philosophic problem, and the kind of determinism I talk. And I think this is I think you agree that my form of determinism kills that philosophic homunculus.
Yes.
It's an interesting question for those who want, and I'd like to know when we've cracked it, and it wouldn't be an area of research of mine, but I'm certainly interested, and I'm glad for humanity to pursue the why we say this, the scientific question.
So I would say your version of determinism kills the homunculus. I would say your version of determinism is about as good a statement that I've seen of classical determinism. So you're representing a whole group of people, and yes, there's still current physicists, probably, and for certain, there's other scientists and other, chemistry and stuff, even, that think that kind of determinism, or, for example, aren't thinking about it every day, but their gut instinct is if push came to shove, if they were thrown into a debate about it and couldn't ignore it and focus on their particular research, they would say that's going to win out, more or less your kind of determinism. Most of the leading quantum mechanics kind of and quantum information physicists, no, they seem wholly, no, God plays dice. Don't tell God what to do. It's a weird kind of dice, though, because remember, uh, as I've said before, is why I say remember, classical randomness, if you just added a random amount of energy, even though the average over time would be zero, no, you would see an energy would walk. It would not be conserved. And it is conserved in quantum randomness. So that's a coordination to the randomness that makes it something very different from regular randomness. And also why it could be generated through a hidden rule. Maybe we should call it hidden rules instead of hidden variables. There's not complicated rules, but the point is, even if you figured out the rules, you wouldn't be able to predict the next series of numbers, and that's from Wolfram.
It exists, and when I say it, what I mean is people saying that, reporting that they have an internal experience. What it means and why they report it is the question, not that it be.
No. The question is, you have it. I'm asking you to reflect on your own experience of it. That other people report it, that's a behavior. You're jumping to the easy problem. The easy problem is why other creatures, other systems might report it. The hard problem is why you report it to yourself.
Anything like this philosophic homunculus, who decides Forrest Gump goes to run. All right, that's long enough.
Okay, I'm going to do, that was good. I'm going to do this little, rambly is one way to put it. I think there's nicer ways to put it. It's just like, you get really great with your whiteboard and stuff. This wasn't that, a rumination. But I consider that great, so that's fine. I want to finish with the fact that, okay, a subtle thing that I see is you've got this idea in quantum information now that entropy is information uh, that you don't know. When you say you're increasing the entropy of a system, you're basically increasing the chaos, the amount of information that you won't be able to deduce. Whereas, like in a crystal, if you know a few of the molecules, you can make a good guess as to where all the rest of them are because you know, they're arrayed at the right place. Doesn't mean the entropy of a crystal is low because there's other energy. There's electrons and photons flying around it. The entropy could still be changed, but that organization and predictability is a lower entropy. But you don't have to know the information for it to become even less known. You know what I mean? You don't have to lose knowledge for something to become more unknowable. And that's energy entropy and the idea of information entropy. So if you have a system like cellular automata that is untraceable in the reverse direction, simple rules, but it means you can't know, then that talks about the entropy, right? You're saying there's entropy, even though it's deterministic, you have a lack of entropy. And I think relativistically that separates you from it, where there is no difference between random, that is the old idea of no reason, and random that has a reason. The random could have a reason because it's unknowable. You can't get more information about it, right? The fact that it was determined in this forward direction doesn't allow you to trace back. So you can't have information about what led to it, and that makes it entropic. That makes it unknowable. That's the same thing as random. That's how I think it's going to work out. Okay, I think I'm gonna make one more video. I should just wait. I might just wait. But I have a couple of old videos where I made PowerPoints and described a lot of these things we've been discussing, the arrows of information coming in, and also the thresholds of the epistemology, what we start with and where we get, what's high level and not as well known, and low level and is well known. Because a lot of where I'm coming from is, look, a philosophy of will, like how to improve your mind in the sense of willing better, right? Like, so a naive idea of will is a good thing. You have to assert your will means I'm going to be a big asshole. I'm just going to say everything I feel like is the way to go. But that's not successful application of the will. Really, then people don't like you. And it's like, what about the part of people that like you? And you have to explain to yourself, it's like, well, fuck them. They don't like me because people are assholes. In reality, you're looking for something more subtle as a solution. And exercising your will, right, and not just geeking out at the gym, but being healthy with your will, it is an important thing for life. It's the most important thing. If somebody is warbling in their life, they not only everybody has some bad interactions and relationships, but they see themselves sabotaging it, and maybe they're wrong, but they need to understand it wasn't their fault, or more likely they are sabotaging it. This is a primary first level thing, right? It's much more abstract to go down to how what we call the physical universe works, and what can you explain with just mass and time and space, right? That's more ephemeral. There's less content to that. It can seem more fundamental because we're explaining how everything's generated, but because it's an explanation and we're really starting up here, it's actually less primary. You can't conclude. You can't go backward. You can make conclusions within the sphere, is my position. And you can make conclusions in a sphere up here and conclusions in a sphere up here. And somewhere just a few levels away, we got art. And all of these levels even feed back and up and down. Our interpretation of this certainly depends on things like this material theory. And I admit I have a material theory. But I just remember that it's a theory, and nothing about it, or my desire to have things be determinable, in my sense, not yours, it can't, no matter what, I can't deny the raw data even exists. So, okay, cheers.